Welcome to today's Explainer. All across the country right now, we're seeing these incredibly ambitious environmental goals being set at the highest levels of government. But, well, what actually happens when those massive, overarching targets hit the real world? Today, we are diving deep into that exact intersection, that very intense clash between our biggest environmental ambitions and the literal physical reality of building out the infrastructure required to actually make them happen.
So, to really wrap our heads around this, let's look at a completely real-world example. Because, let's face it, it's one thing for a policy to just state on paper that a municipality is going to transition its entire massive vehicle fleet to zero emissions. It is an entirely different thing to engineer and actually execute it. We're going to explore how one specific city is navigating this colossal shift, the crazy logistical hurdles they're facing, and the funding bottlenecks that could potentially completely derail these long-term plans.
Section 1. A city's green ambition. Let's look at the Long Beach case study to really understand the national picture.
Okay, so Long Beach has actually been on this transition journey since 2015, and they've done a lot. Their current alternative fuel inventory shows that a really impressive 57% of their fleet already uses alternative options. We're talking renewable compressed natural gas, hybrids, and smaller slices for plug-in hybrids at 10% and propane at 2%. But take a closer look at that fully electric slice. Despite all their dedicated efforts and actually being ranked the #2 green fleet in the entire US, 100% electric vehicles currently make up only about 10% of that total pie.
And there's a good reason for that. When we talk about the actual heavy-duty electric vehicles they're testing out in the field, we are definitely not just talking about a fleet of small commuter sedans. We're talking about massive machines, like a 100% electric street sweeper. These are the kinds of absolutely essential, heavy utility vehicles that a city literally relies on to keep running safely and cleanly every single day.
Or think about an electric refuse or garbage truck. These heavy-duty vehicles have incredibly demanding daily operational needs. They run varied, totally unpredictable routes, they have really high duty cycles, and they are constantly hauling tremendous amounts of weight. Because of all that, they are highly energy-intensive machines. They demand a completely different scale of charging infrastructure compared to, the standard passenger EV sitting in your home garage.
Section 2, the Zero Emission Mandate. Let's talk about how advanced clean fleets completely changes the timeline.
So, under California's Advanced Clean Fleets, or ACF mandate, which was adopted in 2023, the rules of the game for cities completely shifted. Long Beach went from a carefully paced, self-directed rollout to suddenly needing to hit these rigid state-imposed milestones. By 2024, they had to ensure that 50% of all new medium and heavy-duty vehicle purchases were zero-emission. And looking just down the road to 2027, that requirement scales all the way up to 100%.
To truly grasp the scale of what this local mandate entails, we've got to look at the specifics. This rule applies to massive vehicles weighing over 8,500 pounds. For Long Beach alone, that directly impacts 525 medium and heavy-duty trucks currently operating in their fleet. And it brings a huge new administrative and operational workload overnight. They have to do extensive annual reporting to the California Air Resources Board, keeping detailed records for up to 5 years. And if they want an exemption, maybe because a specific truck just isn't available yet or the infrastructure is delayed, well, those requests are highly complex to justify and strictly limited.
Section 3. The heavy cost of compliance. Now we're getting into the financial and logistical reality on the ground.
First up, the vehicles themselves. When it comes time to replace an aging truck, the city is facing an immediate 25 to 40% upfront cost markup just to purchase the electric equivalent compared to a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle. And remember, those traditional vehicles have already seen their own price hikes over the last few years thanks to supply chain issues. So it is a massive, massive capital hit right out of the gate for any local budget.
But hey, the sticker price of the vehicles is just the very beginning of this financial picture. Long Beach estimates they need an additional $34 million just to design and build out the charging infrastructure necessary to actually support these incoming fleets across a 4-phase plan through 2035. Like we said earlier, you cannot simply plug a heavy-duty fleet of garbage trucks into a standard wall outlet. These require major civil engineering projects, extensive trenching, and massive electrical components.
And the raw power required from the local grid to run those chargers, it's simply immense. To support a fully electric fleet of this size, Long Beach calculated they are going to need 60 megawatts of additional power daily. Let's put that massive number into perspective for a second. 60 megawatts is the equivalent of the daily energy consumption of 2,000 standard homes. 2,000! And that is just to charge one single city's utility vehicle fleet.
Securing that kind of power requires serious long-term collaboration with public utility agencies and some major upgrades to aging municipal electrical grids.
Section 4. Federal funding roadblocks. Let's zoom out to the macro level.
Objectively looking at the policy shifts over the last few years, we see a highly volatile funding environment. In 2021, the Biden administration established the $4.4 billion NEVI program, that's the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, specifically to help fund this exact kind of build-out. However, in 2025, the incoming Trump administration issued a 7-month freeze on that funding. Fast forward to 2026, and reports from outlets like E&E News show the program experiencing significant delays and underperformance. This back-and-forth dynamic has severely stalled state procurement efforts and basically left electrical contractors waiting around for a clear path forward on when or even if these projects will resume.
So there's just a vast gap between high-level ambition and ground-level execution here. Out of that massive $4.4 billion originally made available by the federal government to the states, how much do you think was actually utilized? Well, by early 2026, only $94 million had actually been spent by states on these infrastructure projects.
I really want to let that sink in for a moment. That means a mere 2% of the promised federal infrastructure money has actually made it into the ground to build these necessary chargers. Literally 2%. It's a significant bottleneck that leaves local municipalities waiting for critical financial support while the clock in those strict state mandates just keeps on ticking.
And adding even more complication to the mix, the February 2026 budget resolution officially slashed $500 million from the NEVI program. As a result of that cut, there's only $300 million authorized for EV charger installations in all of 2026. This throws $1.4 billion in funds that states had already obligated for their projects completely into doubt. Now, instead of a well-funded, smooth rollout, states are going to be forced to fiercely compete against one another for a highly limited pool of remaining capital.
Section 5. The uncertain road ahead. This is where strict local mandates meet totally depleted federal pipelines.
As the independent electrical contractors note, this trajectory creates a massive structural bottleneck. They point out that with federal reimbursement under NEVI becoming an unsure bet, the future is highly uncertain. And this isn't just about spreadsheets and budgets. This impacts the real electrical workers who are ready for these construction jobs, and it impacts the cities trying to physically build our energy future without the consistent financial backing they originally factored into their plans.
So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to take away from our explainer today. As federal funds begin to dry up and state mandate deadlines tick closer and closer, how will your local municipality navigate this impending bottleneck? Ultimately, if the federal money isn't there, who is going to foot the bill for your city's green transition? It is a fascinating and incredibly vital question we all absolutely need to be asking. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep exploring these critical topics.